Hi guys, so that riff you should have probably recognized. It's Smoke on the Water, and this is just a sort of beginner's lesson just for introducing the concept of power chords. So if you actually listen to Smoke on the Water, technically it's played like, but this is just a little bit of a modified version. We're playing in a different key. We're playing in a lower register, just for the sake of introducing power chords. So what is a power chord? A power chord is sort of like, I'm playing on an acoustic guitar, and we do play power chords on an acoustic guitar, but power chords I would say are more common on an electric guitar, where the sound is amplified, so sometimes you don't want as many notes just because each note is so much more on an electric guitar. So for example, whereas on an acoustic I might play like this is a G chord, I might play like this. If I wanted to play a power chord, I would just play this. Notice how it's kind of the same sound. It's just that power chord sounds, well, there's less notes in the power chord, so it sounds a little bit more compact, sort of, or something like that. So what's going to happen? So a power chord, and the other thing that is nice about a power chord is that, whereas, let's say I go from G to C to D, well, the actual shape of my hand is always changing. It's always changing depending on what chord I'm playing. Whereas with power chords, the shape is actually staying the same. You're just moving it up and down and around the neck. So if I wanted to play G, C, and D in a power chord form, it would be. Notice how my hand is staying the same form, it's just moving around the neck, whereas this is totally changing. So those are just some differences between normal chords and power chords. And a power chord, what a power chord is, now I kind of just, throughout my time playing guitar, I've kind of come up with my own little concepts. I've kind of distinguished between like a full power chord and a sort of half power chord. So let's get into what a full power chord is first before we distinguish what a half power chord is. So a full power chord has three things. There's three things in a full power chord. There's your bass note, and then after that there's your octave. I did that first just because they're the exact same note. And then right in the middle, sort of like, let's say this is the bread, the peanut butter and jelly right in the middle, that's the fifth. And why is it the fifth? It's because it's the fifth note in the scale. So if we were to go, let's say for G, so, right, so we got our bass, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's why we call it a fifth, because it's the fifth note in the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's our octave. Notice it's the same note. If any of you guys play piano, you'll know that that's sort of the same note, but just on the piano it's at different spots. One's in a higher register, one's in a lower register. That's what that means. And then you have your fifth. And whenever you play a power chord, it's always going to be, and usually when I talk about power chords, when I say, okay, power chord on the, let's say I say, you know, power chord on the 5th fret of the 6th string or something like that. Usually might just be something that I do, but I always refer to the bass. I always refer to the bass note, because then I find that everything else just follows through from that bass note. If you know where the bass note is, you know where the other things are. So let's say we're doing our G. Let's say we're playing a G power chord. You're going to have your bass note on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. Because that's a G note. And then after that, the rest of the chord, the 5th and the octave, are always going to be, each one it's going to be 2 over. So let's say your bass is right here on the 3rd fret. 4, 4, 5, they're going to be on the 5th fret, but then after that the 5th is going to be 1 string lower than your bass, well, higher technically, it's in a higher It's a higher register, but like, you know, in terms of literally, it's lower than the sixth string. So you go 1, 2, and then 1 lower. That's your fifth from your bass, and then your octave is going to be 1, 2, 1, 2. It's going to be 2 strings literally lower from your bass. Not in terms of register, but literally lower. And so, and just to, you know, keep that in mind, it's right underneath your fifth. It's right underneath, or where your ring finger is right here. Your pinky's going to be right underneath there. And each one is going to be 2 frets away from your bass. And you hit those 3 strings together, and that's a full power chord. That's a full power chord. And if you want to play a C, it's the exact same thing, except your bass is now going to be on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. Third fret. Yeah, 3rd fret of the 5th string. No, I'm right. And then after that, what you do with these guys, so you go 1, 2, 1, and then pinky 1, 2, 1, 2. And now both of these are going to be on the 5th fret of the 4th and 3rd string. And if you wanted to slide up to a D, you would take this whole thing, you just go 1, 2. So now bass is on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and then the other guys are on the 7th fret of the 4th and 3rd string. I should mention that power chords, at least what I've done so far, only the way that I've described them, only work on the 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd string. Once you get, if you want to try to start playing stuff with the 2nd string, it gets different, so it gets a little weird. Don't worry about that right now. For now, just whenever you're playing power chords, stick with just those 4 strings. Don't add anything underneath here. Just stick with those. And in the strict sense, that's what a power chord is. It's just those 4 strings. So technically, you could actually play power chords on a bass. It would, I don't know if it would sound great, but you could. So, what is a half power chord? A half power chord is a full power chord, but you remove the octave. So you're just doing an open face sort of sandwich there. You take out the higher registered piece of bread, I guess you could say. So let's say this is our full G. You just take out the pinky. And you just play the 5th and the 6th and the 5th string. So for Smoke on the Water, what Smoke on the Water is going to be, or at least in this version that we're going to play, it's going to be, so what that, and you know the riff, so what that's going to be is we're going to have it's all half power chords. It's half power chords where we just remove the octave. So what that's going to be is we have our open E, because think about it, if we were doing this, and all this stuff, if we had a like never-ending fretboard, I would technically play my E like this, and I would have a finger right here, but there's nothing here, and so it's just open. It's just open, but imagine if we were playing like a note over here. We're not, because there's nothing there, it's just open, but imagine if we could, then where would we put it? 1, 2, 1, right there. So I just play it like this with my index, because I can leave that open. So on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, and so, yeah, 2nd fret, 5th string, that's our 5th, and then we have the low E open as our bass. So we go. And then we move up to our G power chord. We have our G bass on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. So we find our 5th, 1, 2, 1, that's on the 5th fret of the 5th string. So E, G, 0, 3, and then we can slide up, so we went from this to the 3rd fret, and then we go 1, 2, to the bass on the 5th fret, which is an A, and we go 1, 2, 1 to find our 5th, and that's the 7th fret of the 5th string. And that's an A. That's an A. A power chord. So E, G, A, 0, 3, 5, so 2, 2, 2, and then the second part, do, 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 and what that is right before we play the A, which is on the 5th, we're going to play a power chord on the based on the 6th fret of the 6th string, and then our 5th will be 1, 2, 1, 8 on the 5th string. And we're going to go kind of quick. We're going to go, that's a sharp. I think, yeah, A sharp. So that's A sharp, A. So far the song goes E, G, A, E, G, A sharp, A. And then the third part is exactly like the first part. It starts off at least the same. So it goes E, G, A. And then just to end it, and to end the riff, we go G, A, A. So that last part, the last part of the riff, after we've done the A sharp A, after we've done that part, it just goes E, G, A, G, E, E. So all together that riff is going to be E, G, A, E, G, A sharp A, E, G, A, G, E, E. And that's Smoke on the Water, just on like sort of using half power chords. So yeah, use this lesson as you see fit, you know, just to kind of, and you know, go through it just to remember what it is, what a power chord is, what are the 3 components of a power chord, what is a half power chord, or how I call them a half power chord. And if you ever watch any more of my lessons, you're going to notice that whenever I kind of usually talk about power chords, I'm usually going to refer to them by their bass note. I'm going to say, okay, like, and I said this earlier in the video, power chord on the 5th fret of the 6th string. That's an A. But I'm going to just usually refer to the bass note, just to be quick with it, so I'm not stuck here explaining for like a minute. Okay, so the 1, 2, 1, 2, because once you know your bass note, keep those other rules in mind. You know, oh, that's where that is, because that shape is always going to stay the same no matter what you're playing, whatever power chord. If you're here, 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 you're way up here, doesn't matter. The shape of a power chord always stays the same. It's just its placement on the neck that changes. That's the only thing that changes. So anyways, I think we'll end it there. So if you have any questions or concerns, just, you know, leave a comment or something like that down below. Okay, thanks guys, bye.